Welcome to the Making of Me podcast. Today we are joined by Russell Van Brocklen, widely known as the Dyslexia Professor. Russell helped parents move from confusions and frustrations to clear, effective strategy that actually work for dyslexia learner. In this conversation, we explore how the understanding the system, not blaming the child, can completely change the student's future. Once again,
Thanks for having me.
so Russell, what first made you notice that bright, articulate students with dyslexia were being misunderstood?
Well, it actually happened to me. I was not supposed to do this. This is the last thing in the world I was supposed to do with my life. I was supposed to be a bureaucrat for the New York State government. What happened is it was the later 90s and I was finishing up college and I wanted to know how laws were created, not some class I wanted to know. So I applied to the New York State Assembly internship program. And when I got there, I said, here's my neuropsychological evaluation. I have a first grade reading and writing ability. And the director kind of freaked out because he said, this won't work. Because typically in the internship, you had the assembly member, you had the chief of staff, who was probably an intern the year or two before, and the intern. And I would have messed up everything up with how bad my writing was. So the director went to the speaker of the New York State Assembly, and the speaker said, listen, you're not going to dump this kid. We've accepted him. You're going to make this work. So they got a committee together, and they did a pretty radical solution. A big part of the internship was your comradeship with your peers, with the other interns. They physically removed me from the legislative office building, and they put me in the Capitol, in the Majority Leaders Program and Council's office that ran the assembly day to day, because they had 3 administrative assistants that could help me with my horrendous writing. The thing is, they had no clue what to do with an undergrad. It was a graduate internship, which was a real staff position, which was fantastic for me. So that worked great. For the academic portion, you're supposed to do a big paper, but I gave an hours-long presentation and Q&A instead, which is a standard accommodation for me back then. Well, they got everything together, and they recommended 15 credits of A-. Then they sent that back to the State University of New York's flagship campus, the SUNY Center at Buffalo, in their political science department, and they looked at the recommendation, the accommodations. They don't have to accept the recommendation. They normally do. They said, we're going to lower your grade because we don't like your accommodations. What do you think they lowered it to?
Wow.
Well, they lowered it not by a little. They flunked me. I got 15 credits of F because I was dyslexic. At that point, yeah. Speak about a gut punch. We don't like the accommodations that the state government came up with, so here's your F, okay, for 15 credits. So at that point, I just got very unhappy. And what I decided to do is I went to my professors I still liked, and I said, where do I go to force myself to learn to read and write in grad school so I can teach other dyslexics? And they said, well, if you like political science, and then it's obvious, law school. So I went to law school with a first grade reading and writing ability, where you read and write more than any other grad program. So it was my second day of contracts. Professor Warner, who was a dyslexic professor for decades, called on me. What they do is they use the Socratic method. They essentially ask you questions that almost nobody knows when you're first starting law school. And when you don't know the answer, they keep asking you questions to embarrass you until you adapt to the system. That didn't happen to me. I didn't respond as a student. I responded as his equal. Now, remember, I'm some, 20s, early 20s kid, and he's in his 50s, 50s, 60s as a professor for decades. And I responded as his equal. He asked me questions. I answered them. I knew where he was going. He knew where I was going. Several moves ahead, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. He said, Russell, at the end of this, I have to stop in the interest of time. You couldn't be any more correct, and you had to move on to the next case. Nobody have ever heard of anything like that. So then I learned to read within the next month, and then permanently, and then I learned to write within the next couple of years. Then I went back to the New York State Senate, and I said, I want you to fund my research for dyslexia, which they don't do. So after years of going through the New York State Education Department, the State University of New York Center at Buffalo, the State Research Foundation for college, what finally got accepted. I got the funding. We went to the Averill Park Central School District right outside the state capital of Albany, New York, and I wanted to help students like me to start off with. really intelligent, really motivated. So we took high school juniors and seniors, think 16 to 18-year-olds, reading and writing like middle schoolers, think 12 to 13, one class period a day for the school year. We increased their writing to the average range of entering graduate school students, the 30th to 70th percentile, in one class period a day for the school year, and they scored in the 30th to 70th percentile at the end. They all went on to college. They all graduated. GPAs of 2.5 to 3.6. Cost to New York State of under $900. And we were less than 1% of the cost and 2 to 3 times as successful as the best private program. And that's how I got started.
Wow, that was really amazing. And the fact that you were really daring when you were actually doing this particular stuff. And there's a whole lot of lessons to actually learn here. So, your focus on structures literacy, what makes this approach more effective than traditional method?
Well, the first thing you got to do when you look at dyslexia is I got this weird idea. Let's look at the science. This is the top book in the field of dyslexia. It's called Overcoming Dyslexia, second edition, by Professor Sally Shaywitz from Yale. She's a medical doctor. That's dyslexia. That's it. Do you see how the back part of your brain has this massive neuroactivity?
Yeah.
Now, do you see how the back part of my brain has essentially next to nothing?
Yes.
Now, do you see how the front part of my brain's about 2.5 times more active than the front part of your brain? Okay, so what I decided to do is I'm ignoring the back part of the brain. I want to take reading and writing and move it forward where we have 2.5 times the neuroactivity. Weird idea. Let's give Michael Jordan a basketball instead of a hockey stick. Okay? Let's focus on the dyslexic strength. So when you're looking at that, the biggest issue that you're going to deal with is a lot of these kids are writing essentially randomly placed misspelled words in elementary school. Think 5 years old to 10 years old. The teachers don't know what to do. The special ed teachers don't know what to do. The kids don't know what to do. Everybody's frustrated. So I'm going to tell you how we're going to fix that. Really, really, really simple to start. The first thing we're going to do is I'm going to give you what the science is. The front part of the brain that's 2.5 times overactive deals with two things. It's called word analysis followed by articulation. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with word analysis. I'm going to give you an example of one of my students that has given me permission to use her story. Her parents have, and she has. At the time, her name is Sarah. She was 10 years old in 5th grade, reading and writing at the 2nd grade level. So she's reading and writing like a 7-year-old. Essentially, she was writing randomly placed misspelled words. So her favorite thing out there was swimming. She was on the swim team. She jumps in the pool every chance she can get. So what we're going to do is if you're teaching Sarah, we would have you type out on a laptop computer. Not an iPhone, not an iPad, certainly not handwriting. You're going to have her type out plus sign. What are we talking about? And then we're going to create a list of 10 things that Sarah really, really likes and 10 things she really, really doesn't like. And so now we're going to go and we have hero plus sign. What are we talking about? We're going to swap out hero for Sarah. Sarah plus sign. What are we talking about? We're going to go to that list of the things she really, really likes. The first thing that's up there is swimming. And we're going to swap out what are we talking about for swimming. So instead of Sarah plus sign, what are we talking about? We got Sarah plus sign swimming. See how we got there?
Yeah.
Okay. Now what I'm going to try to do, I'm going to try to fool you with 2 of the simplest questions you will ever be asked. Do you think I'll be able to fool you?
Yeah. Let's see how it goes.
Okay. So remember, we got Sarah plus sign swimming. We need to replace a word for the plus sign. Her favorite thing to do in the world is swimming. She's on the swim team. She jumps in the pool every chance she can get. So we got Sarah plus sign swimming. Here's my question. We got to replace the plus sign. Here's the question. Does Sarah like or dislike swimming?
She likes swimming.
But that's not what I asked.
Ooh.
This is where you're about to have an epiphany on what dyslexia is. So here's my question again. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Does Sarah like or dislike swimming?
I don't know what to answer at this point.
Do I have you nice and confused?
Yeah, it's confused.
Okay. So now you're about to have your epiphany on what dyslexia really is. I asked, does Sarah like or dislike swimming? What you did is what almost every educated person does. You added the S to like to make it likes, and you replace that with a plus sign so it would be a proper sentence. Sarah likes swimming. But I asked, does Sarah like or dislike? Sarah's dyslexic, okay? So what's going on? Here's the brains again. This is your brain. This is where this is supposed to happen. You got this massive neural activity. Sarah's brain is over here. She has next to nothing. She doesn't know how to add the S. She would have asked like, because that's what I asked her. Would have been Sarah like swimming. She has no clue how to add the S. All right. Now, if you're super rich, if you're a multimillionaire, you're going to send your kid to a specialized dyslexic school using an Orton Gillingham multi-structured language approach. What that simply means is they would show Sarah how to add the S by using every sense you could imagine, seeing, touching, hearing, everything they could throw at it. Once you have a bachelor's degree, it takes 2 years and $11,000 from a non-for-profit to become certified in this approach. I'm going to show you how to finish this up in the next 5 minutes. All right. So what we do, here's a better way. I am going to, again, show you the brain science. I don't care about this back part of the brain. I am going to use this massive overactivity in the front part of the brain, okay? And I'm going to pull things forward. According to Yale, that part of the brain deals with word analysis followed by articulation. Let's do word analysis first. Do you see how like and dislike is a simple form of word analysis?
Yeah.
Okay. So now we got Sarah like swimming. Here's how we get her to spell it correctly. We asked Sarah to read what she wrote out loud. It's Sarah like swimming. Now I would ask Sarah, does that sound generally correct? And she's going to say no. And I'm going to say, fix it. Sarah likes swimming. We have her practice that for 10 likes and then 10 dislikes. Now, we have to move on to articulation. So we got Sarah likes swimming because. Give me a simple reason of why a 10-year-old girl would like swimming.
Okay, it's fun for her.
It's fun. Okay, it's fun for her. Sarah likes swimming because it's fun for her. All right. Now, do you see how we have a whole mess of misspelled words? She's dyslexic. She's writing a whole bunch of misspelled words. So here's how we fix that. We have Sarah read what she wrote out loud, and we say, Sarah, does that sound generally correct? If not, fix it until it does. That gets rid of the horrific grammar mistakes. Teachers tend to have trouble with the really horrific stuff. They're excellent at the mild to medium level. Next, we tell Sarah each time there's a misspelled word in what she typed, she has to retype the entire sentence. So she really concentrates, I'm not going to make that mistake. And she keeps making it, usually between 3 and 13 times. Around 9 to 13 times, sometimes you can see sweat coming down her forehead because she's concentrating so hard. Each time she makes the mistake, she thinks harder and harder. I'm not going to make that mistake, and she keeps doing it until she finally gets it correct. Then we make sure she gets it correct for the other 9 likes and the other 10 dislikes. And then it's reason 1 and reason 2. She gets you have to keep going for all those 20 sentences to be spelled correctly. Then it's reason 1, reason 2, and reason 3 until all those 20 are spelled correctly. Do you see how the reason after the word because is a simple form of articulation?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's word analysis followed by articulation, pulling it from back here where nothing's going on to the front part of the brain that's 2.5 times overactive.
Wow.
All right.
This is really amazing.
Well, what I just showed you is how to take this dyslexic kid in about 10 minutes, and now the kid's writing decent basic sentences with correct spelling and grammar. And here's another little thing. Because the kid can write the words, they can read it. If you can write it, they can read it. All right. So if you teach writing, the reading's naturally improving. Here's the problem. When I tried to start doing this in the real world, I couldn't get these kids to do anything because I went from the super motivated to the average motivation. So the next story I'm going to tell you deals with the kid's speciality, their area of extreme interest and ability. And this is so important. I'm going to tell you about my most successful motivated kid ever. I just want everybody to know I never saw this before. I will never see this again. This was a one-off. Her name was Casey. She was 10 years old at the end of 5th grade. She turned 11 years old over the summer, and she was reading and writing at the 2nd grade level, which is basically 7 years old. So She was very interested in a past American president called Theodore Roosevelt. So I assigned her this little thing. The Rise of Theodore Roosevelt. Oh, 900 pages of real little words. Okay? This is for 15-year-olds to college level, 18. Oh, 10th grade to first year college level, depending on who you ask. I told Casey, because she wanted to do reading first, I said, okay, here's the process. Do 5, 10, 20-minute sessions a night, a couple times a week. Talk to your mom. Didn't know Casey. She essentially locked herself in her room for 3 hours a night, most of the days during the summer, for 6 months. And then she learned you could point out, switch to that page, point to that word, and she would tell you exactly what the definition was. She increased by 8 grade levels in 6 months. I worked with her for 15 minutes a week. This was all Casey. Now, why am I spending so much time on this? Because Casey's mom wanted to know, is this just for a book she loves? What about something she doesn't like? So I assigned her this little thing. Walt Disney, The Triumph of the American Imagination. All 1,000 pages of this monster. This is for 17-year-olds. This is high school juniors. Okay? So reason why I gave it to her, she didn't like it. That's my most popular book because Disney, they think, was dyslexic.
Yeah.
If you ever go to Disneyland or Disney World or any Disney park and you walk in the park, it's Main Street, USA, and you feel the Disney magic. The Disney magic is 2 universal themes. The first one is real easy to find. The second one is not. It took Casey 3 months to find the second universal theme. Takes most of my kids a year or 2, but then they're jumping from where they were up to reading and writing like a 17-year-old. So the parents are generally pretty happy with that. Here's why I'm spending so much time on this. Casey hated that book. So when I asked Casey, I got her mom on the phone because I knew she'd get a kick out of this. I said, Casey, you're finished with Walt Disney. She's like, good, I hate it. And I was like, okay, Casey, when you went from a book you loved to one you didn't like, how much did your motivation drop? And she said about 50%. The most motivated kid I ever worked with, down 50%. Most dyslexics, if you step outside their speciality during the intervention period, and the intervention period is until you get them to grade level or above, they're down 75 to 90%. So that's pretty much going to make almost any intervention program for dyslexics not work or be very inefficient if your motivation is down 75 to 90%. So what we have to do, the first thing we have to do is find the kid's speciality, their area of extreme interest and ability. We have to focus on that. Next, when you're talking with dyslexics, the problem with the front part of the brain is it's so massively overactive. If we ask a dyslexic student or ADD or ADHD in your speciality, and you have ideas, in your specialty, do you have ideas flying around your head at light speed but with little to no organization? They're going to say yes. So then what we have to do to correct that is we have to force the brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. So again, we have to force the brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. All right, so we find out what the kid's really interested in. And then here's how we go about doing that. First thing you have to know is we can't ask a general to a specific question. So if you ask a dyslexic student, for Martin Luther King's famous I Have a Dream speech, what effect did it have on the American civil rights movement of the 1960s? Give that to a typical kid, they just know exactly what to do. But for a dyslexic, it's like grabbing fog. There's nothing there, okay? We have to ask a specific to a general question. What personally compelled Martin Luther King to want to give his famous speech? Once we have that, we can look up the information, find the answer, which gives us another question, which we answer. That forces the brain to organize itself using writing as a measurable output. Then we do word analysis followed by articulation. You do that, it works great.
Wow, that was really amazing. So a whole lot of things to actually learn and unpack from this side. Thanks a whole lot for sharing it through stories. I think just speak volumes to word analysis followed by articulation. This is really amazing. So as progress begins, how do parents know they are on track?
Well, a lot of parents know, well, does this really work? And I could never tell them because dyslexics want to keep things extremely private. So in December of 2024, I met Kimberly a little over a year ago. She said I could use her and her son Reed as an example. She just had Reed tested. Just, about Kimberly, she's a homeschooling mom who's very religious. She has some college, and that's it. She taught Reed's 3 brothers and sisters, who are typical students, how to read properly with standard methods. But she failed with Reed. She felt really bad about it. Reed, according to the state of Ohio, is when I started working with him, he was 10 years old in 5th grade. Was reading at the 11th percentile and writing at the 4th percentile. She worked with him for an hour and a half a week, and I worked with her for half an hour a week for the next 5.5 months. I'm not going to tell you what the end results were because there's better data. Because during the summer of 2025, Reed's friends wanted him in public school for social reasons, to be with them in class, for lunch, just be kids together. Well, in last August, 8 months after I started working with him, he was in school tested, not with his mom, in school tested. She was miles away, so it's better data. Reed scored in reading at the 64th percentile and writing at the 65th. Now, here's the key thing. His friends wanted him in school for social reasons. Reed was, this was January, he would have been placed in special ed, away from his friends, kid. Now, in 6th grade, he's in normal classes with his friends getting A's and B's because his mom did what every parent dreamed of. She solved the problem in 5.5 months, about 36 hours. And to give you more statistics, she taught him less than half the time the public school would have worked with him and taught him 7 times faster.
That was really amazing. And the fact that, the parent know the right thing to do at this particular case. And it's really amazing.
Yeah. See what happens when you work how the dyslexic brain is designed?
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Yeah. So looking back, how did you realize that system was failing students, not the students themselves? Shape your mission today?
Well, when you look at these dyslexic kids, found that the system, if you remember back in your education, do you remember how, like in English, in your language class, you would read like 5 books or 10 books a year or something? These kids, again, this is my most popular book, Walt Disney, they'll be on this one book for 2 to 3 years, one book, okay? We are academic specialists. We excel in a very narrow area. All right. And your school wants you to be well-rounded. So you take all these classes. We just wanted to focus on one. That's why we excel once we hit graduate school. All right. So when I looked at that, I said, okay, now how do we accelerate? Because people are under the impression that dyslexia is a reading problem. It's not. It's a lack of organization, the front part of the brain that kind of presents itself as reading. So if we can show them advanced writing, if you can remember what I said, if you can write it, you can read it. So I decided to do an advanced form for middle school kids of how to do advanced paragraphs. So instead of a simple version of articulation word analysis, we're going to do an advanced one. So how we do that, I want you to imagine we have a hero. The hero wants to do something. So what we will do is we'll write out a sentence, a paragraph, whatever, of what the hero wants to do. And then I'll look for the most important word in each sentence. Okay, and then find the best, most important word overall. That's what I like to call our base universal theme. It's really broad, so we can't use it to focus too much. Then what I will do is I'll have the kid type out the word and then go to Merriam-Webster's online dictionary and find out their favorite definition and type out the definition. You cannot copy and paste. You can't copy and paste. You got to type it out. Because once you type out a word and the definition, after you do it so many times, 5 times, 10 times, 15 times, who knows, you will eventually know that word permanently. So I'll do this with kids at 11 and 12. When they're 16 and 17 taking their SAT or their ACT to get into college, the verbal section is a vocabulary test, essentially. They don't need to study a word of hundreds of words, advanced words, because they already know them. They learn them at 11 and 12, and they remember 70 to 80% of the definition. So then we will we'll take that, our best, most important word, and put it in the thesaurus, and look at 5 words, 10 words, the entire level, multiple levels, whatever the teacher wants, whatever the student wants. But at least 5 or 10, we would have the student type out each word in each definition that they went from Merriam-Webster's online dictionary that they chose. And then we find the definition that best matches in their head. That's our specific universal theme. So now it's really specific. So now we can really use it to focus as a lens. Then we pick an optimum villain, a person or a concept, the best prevents the hero from accomplishing their goal. Then we take that and create a simple sentence with it. Then we go because, and 3 really good reasons, is best reasons we can think of. That's an advanced form of word analysis and an advanced form of articulation. Then what we will do is take each reason and turn it into a simple universal theme, and then go back to our book and find a quote from that universal theme at the beginning of the book and one at the end of the book. So we have 2 quotes, 2 sentences. We put those together for our body paragraph. That's our data. We use those 2 quotes to form our topic sentence. And now I'm going to show you something that almost nobody outside of a PhD knows. Have you ever thought of applying a warrant to a body paragraph?
No.
Here's what a warrant is. Again, if you're not in a doctoral program, you generally don't know what this is. A warrant is between the topic sentence and the data, which in our case are the quotes, and it answers a how and why question. Because each of these quotes is based on the same universal theme, we used one warrant, answering a how and why question between the topic sentence and the quotes. Now, when a university professor in the United States sees that a student has used a warrant in a body paragraph, they tend to think this is automatically at the college level. So I'll teach this to my 11 and 12-year-old students. And they typically have older brothers and sisters who are fighting to be number 1 in their class. We call that valedictorian. They're in advanced placement English. They always write better flowing paragraphs, better word choices, but they don't use warrants. They don't even know what it is. Yeah. So when a university professor says that their younger brother and sister with dyslexia is writing technically more evolved paragraphs than what they're doing, it drives them insane, and it's beautiful.
Wow. Wow, that was really amazing. I think it really speaks volumes. They really understood what they are doing in a deeper level. Once they catch it, being that they could actually even expand on it and give the whys and be behind what they do. That's pretty amazing.
Yes. So basically, that's the beginning part of having dyslexics doing radically advanced stuff. Once we go past that, I show them how to do a problem statement and then to come up with something completely original. All right, that's the full craft of research. That's a book that came out in 1995. Sold over 1 million copies, and it was designed to teach PhD students to do their doctoral dissertations. But university professors want these kids to know this stuff before they start college.
Wow, amazing.
And my kids do.
Ooh.
So yeah.
That's pretty amazing. So Russell, how can my audience get to know you more? How can they connect with you? How can they get your resources? Where's the best platform to do this?
Best thing to do is simply go to my website, which is dyslexiaclasses.com. That's dyslexiaclasses with an S, plural.com. And there you're going to find a button that says download free guide. Just click on that, fill out the form, fill out 3 questions. You get your download document on how to help your kid with dyslexia. And then, most important thing is set up a time to speak with me. It's free. It's a half an hour. We show you how to come up with your kids' speciality, get their audiobook in their book, and we go from there.
Wow, amazing. Yeah, these conversations just remind us that dyslexia is not a limitation. It's a difference that needs the right support. When parents understand what truly works, frustration turns into progress and confidence. To access Russell free guide, visit the link that's going to be on the show notes. And thank you once again for listening to the Making of Me podcast. Once again, it's really a pleasure having you on the show, Russell.
Thanks for having me.